All right, so today we're going deep, deep into a world that honestly most people don't even know exists.
Right.
The MNS blood group system.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty wild. I mean, you probably know like the basics about blood types, right?
Sure.
AB, ABO, positive or negative.
Yeah, most people know that much at least.
But there's some rigor to it.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating is that it's not just about those letters.
Right.
They're like a code, a complex code written in the language of proteins and antigens.
Okay, so let's break this down a little.
Sure.
We all know that finding a compatible blood match, I mean, that can be literally life or death.
It is.
But what exactly is a blood group system?
Well, think of it this way. It's like categories.
Okay.
Categories for all the different little flags or markers on the surface of our red blood cells.
So it's like they all have these little name tags.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And those markers, we call them antigens.
Right.
And they're what determine your blood type.
And they're the things that our immune system is looking for to figure out, what's me and what's not me.
Exactly. It's like a little cellular ID card.
Okay.
And it helps your immune system distinguish between your own cells and anything foreign.
So our immune system is constantly like on patrol looking for these ID cards.
Yes, exactly. Constantly making sure everything is in order.
And so if it finds a red blood cell, but it has the wrong ID,
Yeah, so a different blood type.
it's going to trigger something.
It triggers an immune response. That's right.
Okay, and that can be bad.
Oh, it can be very dangerous. Yeah.
So that's why matching blood types for transfusions is so critical, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like making sure everyone at a party has the right invitation.
Yeah, you want the wrong people crashing the party.
Exactly. You want to avoid any unwanted clashes, let's say.
Okay, but we've been talking about ABO and RH.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other systems too, right?
Oh, yeah. There are actually over 40 other blood group systems out there. And each one has its own unique set of antigens.
Okay, and so we're talking about today the MNS system.
Right, the MNS system. One of the more overlooked but incredibly important ones.
Okay, so MNS, what makes that one so complex?
Well, it all comes down to the proteins. There are two in particular, Glycophorin A and Glycophorin B.
Okay.
And they act as a kind of scaffold
Uh-huh.
for a mind-boggling number of antigens, over 50 different types.
Wow.
Yeah.
50.
It's a lot.
That's a lot to keep track of.
It is. It makes it one of the most diverse and challenging systems to study, for sure.
So why do we even bother? I mean, if it's so complex, why do we even study it?
Well, because even though it's a bit of a hidden world, the implications are anything but hidden.
Okay.
I mean, understand it can be a real game changer for making sure blood transfusions are safe.
Right, because we're not just talking about matching A, B, and O anymore. We're talking about even more specific matching, right?
Exactly, precisely. So imagine you're trying to find a match for someone with a really unique combination of MNS antigens.
It's a needle in a haystack.
It is a needle in a haystack. That's a great way to put it.
And this has to play a role in pregnancies too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, especially when the mother's blood type isn't compatible with the fetus.
Right.
So if a pregnant woman has antibodies, and think of antibodies like little wanted posters for specific antigens.
Mm-hmm.
If she has antibodies against MNS antigens that the baby inherited from the dad, well, those antibodies can cross the placenta
And attack.
and attack, yeah, the fetus' red blood cells.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the blood types themselves, but also these antibodies that our bodies make
Precisely.
in response to different antigens.
Right. And that's what's so fascinating about this whole area of research. It's not just about the antigens.
Right.
It's about how our immune system responds to them, especially the role of these antibodies.
Okay, so we've got these antigens. They're like ID cards, and our immune system is checking those cards.
Yeah.
And it's using these antibodies to do it. But why is it so important that we actually make antibodies?
Ah, good question.
Like for use in medicine. Like, why is that so important?
Well, think of it like this. Having access to those antibodies is like having a specialized toolkit
Okay.
to be able to manage transfusions in pregnancies. So, for example, we can use antibodies to test for the presence of specific antigens.
On the red blood cells.
On the red blood cells, right.
Okay.
So it allows for much more precise matching between donors and recipients.
So we're talking about making sure that blood is truly compatible.
Exactly. It takes out the guesswork.
Yeah.
And it's not just transfusions. It can help us manage pregnancies more effectively, too.
Especially in those cases where, like we said, the mom might have antibodies that could harm the fetus.
That's right.
So we're kind of moving into this world of personalized medicine,
You got it.
where it's not just one size fits all.
Exactly. And that's why all this research is so vital.
Yeah.
It's moving us toward this future where we can personalize medical care.
This is all so fascinating. We've covered the basics of blood group systems, the antigens, the antibodies,
Yeah.
and why it's so important that we study these complex systems like M&S.
Right.
But I'm ready to go even deeper.
Okay.
What else is hiding in this M&S system?
Well, things get even more interesting when we start talking about the interplay between glycophorin A and B.
All right, lead the way.
Okay. So remember all those antigens we talked about?
Yeah, over 50?
Over 50. Well, they're not just like randomly scattered on those glycophorins.
Okay.
They actually have very specific positions, and even tiny changes in that arrangement can cause big problems.
They're very precisely placed.
Yeah, it's like a delicate dance. Even one misstep can mess up the whole routine.
So we've got these two glycophorins, A and B. They're like the stage, and antigens are the dancers.
Yeah.
What kind of dance moves are we talking about here?
Well, one of the most fascinating things is that they can actually swap genetic material.
The glycophorins.
Yeah, like dancers trading costumes in the middle of a performance. It's called gene conversion, and it can lead to these hybrid glycophorins.
Hybrid.
Yeah, they're combinations with antigens from both A and B.
So it's not just about the individual antigens themselves, it's also about how they're combined, right?
Exactly. Like creating a whole new costume just by swapping a few pieces.
Okay, and these hybrids, they're the wild cards.
They are the wild cards. That's a good way to put it. Because they have such unique combinations of antigens, they can be really hard to find with the normal blood typing tests.
So how do scientists even begin to figure this all out?
Well, thankfully, we have some pretty incredible tools now,
All right.
like gene sequencing.
Right.
It lets us look at the genetic code of these glycophorins in amazing detail. It's like we have a backstage pass.
Oh, wow.
We can see how these hybrids are being made, what unique antigen combos they've got.
So we're not just looking at the blood, we're looking at the genes that make all this happen.
Exactly. And the more we learn about those variations in the genes, the more we can refine our blood typing and come up with better, more targeted treatments.
It's all about getting more personalized.
That's right.
I'm really starting to see why this is so fascinating to scientists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this tiny little world, but it's so complex.
It really is.
And figuring it all out could have such a huge impact.
Exactly. And it's constantly changing. Like we're seeing new things all the time.
Like what?
Well, one example is the role of the M&S system in infectious diseases. There's a lot of research going on there.
Okay.
Some studies even show that certain M&S antigens might actually protect against malaria.
Really?
Yeah, while others could make you more susceptible to certain viruses. It's pretty interesting.
Wow, so we're talking about way more than just transfusions and pregnancies here.
Oh, yeah.
This system could even be influencing how likely we are to get sick.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important that the research keeps going. The more we understand, the better we can develop ways to prevent and treat a whole range of problems.
This is amazing. I mean, it's incredible how much is happening inside our blood cells.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have some questions about the antibodies.
Okay.
We talked about how important it is to have them available for transfusions and pregnancies.
Right.
But how do they actually work in those situations?
Good question. That takes us to the heart of how our immune system deals with anything foreign, including blood that's not compatible.
Okay.
So remember those wanted posters we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, antibodies are like the detectives. Each one is trained to spot a specific antigen.
And if an antibody finds a red blood cell, but it's got the wrong antigen, so from a different blood type,
It triggers an alarm. That's right. It tells the immune system to attack.
it's like a security checkpoint.
Yeah.
And they're checking everyone's ID.
Exactly. And if anyone tries to sneak in with a fake, the antibodies, they raise the alarm.
Okay, but how do we actually use this in medicine?
Okay, well, let's say a patient needs a transfusion. We can use antibodies to screen the donor blood to make sure it doesn't have any antigens that the recipient's immune system might attack.
So you're preventing those bad reactions that can happen when you mix the wrong blood types.
Exactly. It's like having a security team that checks everyone before they come into a venue.
So everyone's speaking the same language.
Exactly. And it's not just transfusions. During pregnancy, if the mom has antibodies against the baby's blood antigens,
Yeah,
well, they can cross the placenta and attack the baby's red blood cells.
we talked about that.
Right. It's called hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn,
HDFN.
HDFN, and it can be very dangerous.
So we use the antibodies to identify those moms early.
Yes, and we can intervene.
Okay.
And sometimes we can even use antibodies to treat HDFN.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a special treatment called intravenous immunoglobulin, IVIG. It can actually block those harmful antibodies.
wow.
It's like sending in a peacekeeper to stop a conflict.
These antibodies are incredible.
They're pretty amazing, right? And that's not all. Having them has really helped us understand this whole system better.
Okay.
We've been able to map the different antigens, see how common they are in different groups of people,
Right.
and even figure out the genetics behind how they're made.
They're tiny but powerful.
They really are.
Whoa. So what's next? I mean, where's all this research headed?
Well, there's a lot to be excited about. One big area is artificial blood.
Artificial blood.
Yeah, imagine a future where we don't need donors anymore.
That would be huge.
It would. Scientists are working on creating blood substitutes that can carry oxygen
Wow.
and do the other jobs of real blood.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does a bit, right?
Mhm.
But if it works, it could completely change things. For emergencies, for people with rare blood types, it would be revolutionary.
Yeah.
And beyond artificial blood, there's all kinds of other amazing research happening too. Stem cells, gene editing, you've probably heard of CRISPR, and even vaccines that are personalized based on your specific blood. The possibilities are really endless.
This is all blowing my mind. I mean, who knew there was so much going on with blood groups? It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
But before we wrap up, what's the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that blood is much more complicated than we think. It shows us just how incredible and diverse human biology is. And as we keep learning more, we're finding new ways to help people live healthier lives.
That's a great point. And on that note, we'll say goodbye to the world of blood groups. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.
And we're back for one last look at this amazing world of blood groups.
Yeah, this has been really incredible.
We've seen how antigens and antibodies work together, how crazy diverse that MNS system is,
Right.
and all the cutting-edge research that's happening. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, we started with just those basic letters A, B, O.
Yeah.
But now we see that even the smallest changes on those cellular ID cards
Right.
can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how far we've come. From just matching blood types for transfusions to now looking at personalized medicine, preventing diseases, even developing these incredible new therapies.
You know, what really got me was just how complex that MNS system is.
Yeah, it is.
Over 50 antigens, hybrid glycophorins, gene conversions.
It's like a whole other language, and we're just starting to figure out what it all means.
And it's a tough field.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's part of what makes it so exciting. Each new discovery opens up a whole new world to explore.
Absolutely. And the potential benefits for people, for their health, I mean, it's huge.
It is. It really is.
We talked about antibodies being important for transfusions and pregnancies.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that they could be used to fight infections
Right.
and even cancer.
That's right. The possibilities are incredible. Imagine harnessing the power of our own immune system
Yeah.
to fight off diseases with incredible precision, using antibodies that can zero in on a specific target.
It's like having a microscopic army.
It is. And we can program them to find and destroy the enemy without hurting anything else.
And this is already happening.
It is. We're seeing some really promising results with antibody therapies for all sorts of conditions,
Yeah.
autoimmune diseases, cancers. It's amazing what we can do when we really understand how our bodies work.
It all comes back to that. I mean, this whole deep dive has been a great reminder that even the tiniest things in our bodies, those antigens, those antibodies, they can make a huge difference. It's amazing how connected everything is.
It really is. And that's what's so fascinating about studying blood groups. It's not just about blood.
Right.
It's about seeing how our genes, our immune system, even our environment all work together.
So as we wrap up this journey into the world of blood, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
Don't underestimate the power of curiosity. Keep asking questions, keep learning, never stop being amazed by how incredible life is.
I love that. And on that note, we'll say goodbye to the amazing world of blood groups. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, stay curious.